thanks for coming out. We were going to go ahead and get started. I know it's Yellow Springs time. We'll be having some people probably come in here in a little bit as well. I want to list, or I've got 9 things to go over, and then we'll turn it over to Woda. So first off, thank you all for coming. We're looking forward to a great meeting. I want to say that we're here to provide feedback for the design plan for the project. We need to make sure that we all stay respectful for the project, and the concerns are for the project moving forward. I don't want to have to, but if we start going down rabbit holes, we're going to have to shut the meeting down because this is truly about the design. Sign-in sheet here at the table, email address, and all that information. Time limit, we do have a stopping point, 8 o'clock. Submitting questions. If we run out of time, which I don't think we will, but if we do, your questions, we really want to know your questions, and please write them down. The more information we get, the better this project is going to be. Put them there. We will respond to every question sent back to you. We want to make sure that every question is answered. Let's see here. The note cards are right there on the table. Somebody, just like council, if we've already heard the question, don't ask the same question. Come up with a different one. We want to hear a different question. Again, respectful. I can't say this enough. We've got community members. We are respectful. We want to make sure that we remain that way with kindness. We hang the banners across the road. Let's be kind. Focus on the topic and ensure that all questions are addressed to where everybody can hear them. We'll have a mic, correct? So at this time, I'm going to introduce Jared and then let him take off with the meeting. This is Jared Miller with Woda Company, and I'll turn it over to you.
Who are you?
I am Johnny Burns, the village manager. Thank you, Marianne.
Hi, everybody. Like Johnny said, I really got to eat it. Can you guys all hear me all right? All right. My name is Jared Miller. I work for Woda Cooper Companies. I'm excited to be here, and I thank you for having me. Just a few things off the start. I know my presentation board here is a little small. I drive a very small car. Can you not hear me? Toward me. How about now? All right. All right. As I was saying, my presentation board here is a little small. I drive a very small car. That is all I could fit. But we do have this up here. And then also at the table here is a printout. And on the back of it, which I see a lot of you guys already have, is a site plan of what we're going to be talking about tonight. So if you have not already grabbed one, I would recommend. But we should have everything you see up here as well. All right, so I've recognized there's been a lot of talk about this project over the past year, and it's not the first time it has been discussed in a public setting. So the goal here tonight is to provide some more clarity on what the next steps are, as well as an introduction to Woda Cooper Companies. So the objectives here, I'm going to go over the project team, I'm going to go over our background, who Woda Cooper Companies is, and then the initial design direction, or the things we've been keeping in mind as we start our preliminary process here. The site plan that you guys are all seeing on the back of your paper, the amenities that will be in the project, or what we're currently thinking will be in the project, and then a little information on an MBE case study in case you're interested. But really the goal here and what we're hoping to take away is to answer as many questions as we can and receive as many questions as we can. So like I said, if you are uncomfortable with speaking in a group setting, please feel free to leave a comment card. They can be found up here and just place them in the bowl. So as you know, the village and you all have been discussing a potential affordable housing community at the Enon Road site. The culmination of that was a competitive RFP that was released around Thanksgiving. Woda Cooper Companies submitted a response and was later selected as the preferred developer on the project. Since then, which was about December, we have been working with the village to prepare a preliminary design and forming the project team. In that process, we have identified Neighborhood Housing Partnership of Greater Springfield as a partner on the project. They are what is called a Community Housing Development Organization, CHODO for short. CHODOs are community-based, nonprofit organizations that focus on development work within a geographic area. They specifically are going to be a co-developer, a part owner, and then a supportive service provider in the long-term operation of the project. Now, Woda Cooper Companies, we are going to play a myriad of roles. Those are lead developer, part owner, general contractor, architect, and property manager. To better understand us, though, we can take a step back and kind of focus on who Woda Cooper is. Sorry if I keep going in and out with the mic. I'm trying to be conscious about it. But first, what we do is we develop, design, construct, and manage affordable housing communities. We have a talented team that focuses on a broad horizon of potential different projects in urban settings, rural settings, different types. We have garden apartments, townhouses, adaptive reuse, new construction, acquisition. We do the full suite of services. And what we have built since our founding in 1990 by our founders, Jeff Woda and David Cooper, is over 330 communities and 16,000 units. Now, that was as of January of last year, so the number has grown a little bit. And who we are, myself included, is 700 plus employees strong that operate out of 17 states in the Midwest, Mid-Atlantic, and the Southeast. Technically, it's 18. We just started work in Texas, but it makes my graph a little less functional, so I did not include them. But one of the things that separates Woda Cooper from the rest is that we are an employee-owned first, but we also consist of a variety of different organizations within the Woda Cooper umbrella. So we are the first vertically integrated affordable housing development firm in the country. What that means is we have a development arm, so doing the actual development work, that is what I do. We have Woda Construction, which is the builder on the project, so they serve as the general contractor for all of our developments. We have Woda Management of Real Estate, who is the property manager on all of our developments. And then we have PCI Design Group, who is the architect on the majority of our projects, and will be on this one. So we offer a full suite of services from architect, builder, manager, and long-term owner and operator. So with this process, what we have been working towards is an application to OFA. For those who are unfamiliar, that is the Ohio Housing Finance Agency. They're a state agency that is responsible for divvying out federal tax credits through a competitive application or several competitive application processes. That application, or the one we will be submitting, is going to be submitted on February 27th here, and that is the ultimate goal of what we are working to. It is a kind of complex process, to be fair. OFA offers a bunch of different ways to procure tax credits for a project. We're going to go with the 9% route, is what we think is currently the best solution for this development. And what that entails is a pre-application, a proposal application, a final application, and then ongoing compliance with OFA through the life of the project. So currently we have submitted the pre-application. That's just to let OFA know, hey, we have a project and we're looking to submit something in the near future. We will proceed with the proposal application, which is due February 27th. And then after that, we will learn if the project has been invited back to submit the final application. That's kind of what the award date is. So the date we're really keeping in mind, this isn't an exact date, it's just a general, is the results of proposal application received here, which we think is going to be around May. Could dip into June, but probably around May 1st. So where we're at now is February 6th. We have the first community meeting here, and with the amount of time that we have in advance of the application, we are only able to fit one community meeting in for the moment because we need to start preparing our application materials as soon as possible. So the feedback that we hear today will be incorporated into our application. And then when we hear back, probably in May, hopefully with good news that we will be awarded, then we will come back soon after and then once more to hear more about what you guys have feedback-wise for us. Eventually, we will work towards the final application, which is in September, and then the closing on the land, and then the construction start is anticipated for the summer of 2026. Typically, for a development like this, which I'll get to later, is probably like a 14 to 16 month construction schedule. So that would put us in a fall 2027 construction completion. The name for the project that we have chosen, at least right now, is Enon Greene. Obviously, that's the address for the school adjacent site. And when we first began our initial talks with the village and just hearing from whoever would talk to us at the moment, we came away with some objectives that we were trying to keep in mind for our preliminary design process. The first is to maximize 2 and 3 bedroom units. The second is to maintain a 3-story building height. The third is to have elevators in the building for accessibility. Fourth is to design with the Educational Service Center, which is just south of the site, in mind. And then we were instructed that it would probably be preferable to enter off Enon Road. And lastly, to ensure sufficient parking for the site. I think you guys are all probably familiar if you are here, but this is the existing site. It's 3.6 acres. Right at the intersection of Dayton Yellow Springs Road and Enon Road. So the site plan here is, if you can't read it or you can't see that, it's all on your paper. But what we are proposing currently is a 3-story elevator building. It will have 71 total units. We are anticipating 13 of those will be 1 bedrooms, 43 will be 2 bedrooms, and 15 will be 3 bedrooms. The purpose there is that OFA 1 wants to see projects that have sufficient capacity for family units, and hearing from you guys that you guys were also looking for development that prioritized 2 and 3 bedroom units. And then the last thing here is that we currently have a count of 124 parking spaces, which we think would be sufficient for the amount of units here, and 10 of those will be accessible. Here's the plan again, this time now in color. So it is the same as what you're looking at. But as you can see, the idea that we're working with is to push the building closer to the Dayton Street at the top, and provide a little bit of a buffer around the Educational Services Center down south, as well as room for ample parking, a playground, picnic area, probably a covered patio, and ample foliage, as you can tell, better illustrated than colored plan here. So that was the site plan, and now we can focus on what will actually be the guts of the building, or what will go inside of it, or around it. So the crux of the development is going to be the amenities that are provided. Those are split between community amenities or unit amenities. For the community, we anticipate in all of our developments there will be 2 full-time staff. One of those is an on-site property manager, and the second is a maintenance technician. We will have a tenant services coordinator. There will be a picnic area, a covered patio of at least 400 square feet, with ideally half that is going to be covered. And then we have a playground, which is better described as a tot lot, an exercise room, a community room with a kitchenette, a mail and package room, and then OFA's threshold requirements for design require green certification. At this point, we don't know which one, but it will either probably be the LEED Silver or the Enterprise Green Communities are what is typically provided. Now, inside of the units, we have an Energy Star certified dishwasher, Energy Star, certified washer and dryer, individual water heater, and HVAC, 10 accessible units. 8 of those will be mobility impaired, and then 2 will be sensory impaired. So for the remainder here, I have just a handful of projects that Woda Cooper Companies has developed, and we now operate full-time. So they're mostly pulled from Columbus, because that is where we are headquartered out of. Here is Atchison Place Lofts. So on the left is the building itself. This would be reminiscent of a similar style of the building we'd be proposing, but one less story. And then also on the right here is their community room, to kind of give you a look inside what their community room with the kitchenette would look like. This is the same building, and on the theme of the amenities, this is the fitness room for the building. It's typically housed with a selection of fitness equipment, ample room to do free exercises, things like that, or group classes. And then on the right, you can see what would be community laundry. So we're proposing individual washer and dryers in each unit, but typically we also have community laundry available. This is a separate project. This is Jenkins Lofts. It is also in Columbus, Ohio. This is a 3-story, a similar selection of materials. So you have brick, you have hardy board, different types of vinyl. But the reason I included this one was because I also wanted to show some pictures of the accessible units. So this is one accessible unit within Jenkins Lofts. As you can see, we have the grab bars in the shower, and then this is an example of a accessible kitchen where they have the pull out where the sink is, and also just a freestanding area for people who need wheelchair access. So those are things that can be switched around depending on who is occupying the unit. Here, this is Dunbury Green in Columbus, Ohio. At least as of the picture, this was more recently constructed, which is why you see the papers in the window. But here I wanted to highlight the covered patio on the right picture here. And that is also an example of some monument signing that is typical for our construction. Same building, Dunbury Green in Columbus. Now this is the interior, and this is representative of just our typical unit finishes. So you have laminate flooring, countertops, and then you have your Energy Star certified dishwasher and applicable appliances there. This is a different project. This is Lockbourne Green, also in Columbus, Ohio, not too far from you. Here you can see the outside of the building, also a 3-story, but here on the right is a good example of just a tot lot and then a picnic area with the requisite required green space around. This is also Lockbourne Green. So on the left here is going to be the community room. It's just another example of community room with kitchenette. It's tables that can be kind of moved around and fit the setting that you need them to. And then on the right, and a lot of our developments, kind of depending on the floor plans, but they're equipped with a lounge area. Kind of think of it as like a study room, or if we have tennis service coordinators that wanted to take their meeting outside the office, they can meet with residents in an enclosed room like that. So one of my last slides here, and I promise we can get to the questions, is a case study of one of our recent projects in Columbus. This was 2 phases. It's called Granville Woods Lofts. And the reason I include it is because here we have a breakdown of the MBE and WBE requirements. As you can see, over $2 million of the construction contract and near $2 million in the second phase went to MBE and WBE certified firms. Yeah, sorry. MBE is a minority business enterprise, and a WBE is a woman-owned business enterprise. Now, that was all I had. I'm happy to click through other photos to, if you guys have any questions about specific things. But now we can open up to questions. I know Meg will be walking around with the mic.
All right. So who wants to ask the first question? All right, Matthew. Okay. I think he beat you. Sorry.
Matthew Kirk, I live at Southview Drive. I guess I have a couple questions, but I'll just start off with one. Do you have any pictures of what this actual project is going to look like? Are the units going to be accessed via like an interior hallway? Are they accessed from outside? How many access points into the building are there? Like, I don't know. Those are fine, but it doesn't really tell me much about what that is.
Right. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm just navigating to the site plan. So we haven't progressed in the design far enough to get to that point. I can say that all accesses would be controlled accesses, and the only ones you would have the main entrance, and then likely 2 code compliant ones for egress. So your limit there would probably be 3, and then there'd be an additional one for the maintenance technician to get in and out of. Does that answer your question?
Not exactly, yeah, but kind of, I guess. So everything's interior hallway then.
Right. Yeah. It's central corridor.
Lobby or whatever, and then okay.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot your second part of the question. Yeah, everything would be a central corridor, so main entrance, access through the lobby, a vestibule, and then there would be no like ground floor access to like the units. Yeah, everything would be through a hallway.
Do units have any access to outside, or you have to exit the building to, like, you can't, there's no door from your unit to outside? Is that accurate?
Accurate.
Okay.
Brian Walker, a longtime Yellow Springs resident. Impressive impressive presentation. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that something about having access off of East Enon was something that that has been decided. So I'm curious, I mean, you said this is a proposed level. Will there be other opportunities for either local government or any other local agency to provide any input towards the design?
Yeah,
Or is this already a lock, or will there be other?
no,
other
this
opportunities?
is not a lock. There will be other opportunities, whether that's through the community meetings we'll have later, or just your normative. We will need to go through planning commission, through the village, and everything else.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's part of the reason we're having the meeting tonight. So if you have thoughts, you can give them tonight too on what regarding the design, because the site plan hasn't been completely finalized yet. I mean, there's some aspects, and he can allude to that. He can elaborate if that is something that's locked in, but most things aren't pretty locked in right now. That's
No.
kind of the intent of this meeting, is to hear your thoughts.
Correct. No,
Yeah.
most, I would say there's very seldom things that are locked in. The reason that we have this meeting now is because we're looking for your guys' feedback. So if there's something you feel strongly about, we would love to hear about it, and then we can take it back and review it.
Thank you. Mitzi Miller, just curious, have you contacted the fire department to see what their requirements are? And if it's going to be a 3-story, will they need a ladder truck? And currently you only have one entrance in and one entrance out. That seems a little concerning to me.
Okay, yeah, I understand. So we haven't talked to the fire department specifically yet. Now, we have been working with the village, who have relayed some of the requirements that the fire department will have, and we will have a more formal process with them during the planning meetings. So to answer your question first, the things that we have talked about, though, is we understand from the village that the height requirement at 3 stories is one that's kind of dictated by the availability of fire service and how tall of a ladder they can actually get up to. So that was the reason that the building is limited at 3 stories. And then we've also heard that looking at the drive aisles, the radius that you need to hit, I think it was 50 and 38 respectively for ambulance service, and then like a fire truck service. And currently, what we're showing here is I don't have it on the plan, but we do hit those requirements.
Hi, my name's Riley, Riley Dixon. Can you elucidate the kinds of things that can be changed as a result of community input? So we have the site plan, but what kind of modifications could be made based on, public feedback? Could you give maybe a list of 4 or 5 things that could look different in a future presentation?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a lot of things are malleable. I will say that we do have to stay within just code compliance, and then also what OFA is going to be looking for. Some of the things that we think could be addressed is, one, building location. We currently have designed this way just from feedback that we did hear from the public about wanting to create that buffer in between the educational services center and the building. The layout of the playground and picnic area, if that's better suited in a different spot, things like that, we'd be able to take into account. The existing foliage, this is just a rough estimate of where we think plantings would occur. But if there was, let's say, we wanted to focus the plantings along this south line here, that is something we'd also take into consideration. Things like fencing. I really do think that if you had something strongly in mind, if you suggest it, I think we'd always welcome the feedback, because we do want to create a building that you guys want to see in your community. So even if you think it might not be able to be done, we would welcome the feedback.
Hi, Chris Bongiorno, village resident. Sticking with the site plan, I'm curious about the parking requirements from the zoning perspective versus what you would like to see as the developer. I also want to just point to the presence of a a bicycle and pedestrian path along East Enon that is in disrepair, but there's an active effort to repair it and restore it to a proper multi-use path. So I'm thinking about pedestrian and bicycle orientation, and in that way, I'm looking at this as potentially flipped a little bit, that I would personally prefer to see the L with the building fronting the street rather than the parking fronting the street. That, again, is a personal preference. I don't know if that's in the code at all. There's also a fair amount of mature trees towards the corner of East Enon and Dayton Street. If there's an effort to preserve those, I think that would do well to help this development look like it fits within the existing fabric. So I guess there's a question, and also a question not only about the parking requirements, but what needs to be set by that February 27th deadline versus what can change after that date. Thank you.
Okay, I'll answer your last question first there. The things that are going to be set by that February 27th deadline is primarily the unit count. So we're trying to finalize that because that affects the majority of the rest of these conversations. What OFA is really looking for is the unit mix. So we can address the layouts, the orientation, et cetera, after the application. They're all right with that. They just want to know how many affordable units are going to be in the property, how many total units, because that's really what their bottom line means. And I know you had a handful of other comments there. The preservation of trees, we would love to preserve as many of the mature growth trees as we can. That's in everybody's best interest. And then the bicycle paths, I don't think the orientation of the building is locked in. I think the primary reason that it's situated currently is mostly just push it north, away from the ESC building. If it's better fronted on Enon, we definitely take that into consideration. And we haven't discussed the bike path internally. I think we can work with the village to understand better where that is and where it could be improved upon.
Steve McCaw, local resident. I assume that's South College Street we're seeing running horizontal there? What is that?
This one?
Where is? Okay, so South College is below. So, and then where is the actual? You got green all around there. Maybe you don't know where the driveway in is going to be.
Yeah,
Yeah, barely could see it.
Right.
If
you on the paper on the backside, this image is, and it's better pointed out right there. Yeah, sorry,
Okay.
the colored is.
yeah, you're going to have a whole lot of traffic around there at certain times of day with the high school.
Right.
That's why I'm asking. And a lot of people walking, a lot of bikes. And then you also have a lot of people coming in to Yellow Springs that are going to turn right, coming home from work and everything, from the base and everything. So it's going to be, at times of day, it's going to be very congested around there.
Okay. Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, was just going to clarify or restate, I guess. So February 27th is when the initial application is due. And that's the point when the unit mix, so meaning like the number of bedrooms are going to be 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom. The total unit count, it can't modify after that. But so there's going to be 2 more community meetings, and then that latter application deadline that was in September, I believe. We can modify the specifics of the design that items you highlighted earlier up until then. Okay, just wanted to reiterate that to clarify.
Right. Yeah, that is all correct. So ultimately, the design here that you're seeing, the biggest changes are going to occur with the Yellow Springs process, getting your permits. Really, like Meg said, it's the units that OFA is concerned about. There can be minor fluctuations, like we can go from a few 2 bedrooms to a 3 bedroom or vice versa. But really, they're going to want to see the total units and the amount of affordable units locked in.
Hi, Kate LeBacont, local resident. So I had a couple of questions. One, I see that the development team includes Woda, and I was really pleased to see that Woda was employee-owned, vertically integrated. That looks very exciting. I was curious about Neighborhood Housing Partnership of Greater Springfield. I had anticipated that Home Inc. would be a minority partner, and I wonder why it is that it was not.
Right.
And then, secondly, I'd like to understand if the anticipation is that these units would remain permanently affordable.
Yeah, thank you. I can answer both of those. So I'll start with your second one. These units will remain permanently affordable. So Woda Cooper Companies, we've been in business since 1990. We solely do affordable housing, and these units, we will be the long-term owners, we will be the long-term property manager, and I can guarantee that they will be affordable into perpetuity. For your first question, we did reach out to HomeInc to partner in the initial RFP process. They were already working with St. Mary's, so they declined to partner with us. But in the process, what we realized as we got into the project is what the project really needed was CHODO involvement. So that is a community housing development organization. It's just a kind of like a quasi-governmental local development organization. They're a nonprofit. And the reason that we need them involved is because they enable the project to receive up to $1 million in additional funding that is necessary for the project's completion. And with HomeInc's involvement, that would not have been possible. We did look to include them in any way we can. We do think if the project is awarded, there could be an opportunity to include them in a supportive services capacity.
Well, first, I'd like to thank you for the presentation, and as Kate alluded to, the knowledge that you are an employee-owned company is very cool. We used to have 2 such employee-owned companies in Yellow Springs, and so that seems good. And I'm assuming what you're saying is that your organization plans on owning these apartments as long as your organization exists, which is what would make them permanently affordable.
Correct. Yeah, we own all the developments that we develop, and we'll guarantee the affordability.
And also that you mentioned, I guess it was OFA that requires the green designation, but I think that is very good, and I think people in Yellow Springs will appreciate that. I also was going to ask about the HomeInc, which is a CHODO, I believe, correct? Oh, HomeInc is not a CHODO. Okay, so I understand that. I have a number of other questions, but I won't ask them all. Let me choose one. So given that you're going to go for a green designation, I would like to encourage you to have all of the vegetation that gets put in there be native plants. And we have a team, a habitat team in Yellow Springs that supports that. The village is certified as a native habitat community with the National Wildlife Federation, and so we could offer support in that regard. And that'll be my question for now. Thank you.
I'll
Okay.
be right back. She was next.
Hi, Relita Hildebrand, resident. I just wanted to get an answer to the question about parking spots and what would the ideal number, if there was no zoning issue, what would the ideal number of parking spots be for the breakdown of these units? Mm-hmm. And then the second question is just, at what point in time would you do something like a traffic study to look at, this is a recurring, kind of concern, is that the traffic around that area because of the high school and just because it's a major artery into the village. So if you could talk a little bit about that, the ideal number of spots versus how many we have now and the traffic survey. Thank you.
Yeah, I can definitely address that. So for your first question, the ideal number of spots, it varies by location, it varies by what type of building you're building. So in a downtown setting, you're going to require less parking. In a more rural setting like this one, you're going to require more parking. Typically, though, in the state of Ohio, this is a unit mix that is pretty common. And for this unit mix, we'd be looking to see around 1.5 parking spots per unit. That number is based on the amount of cars per unit that we see in the communities that we manage. And what we're currently anticipating is a 1.75 to 1 ratio. The reason that it'd be ideal to get closer to 1.5 is honestly it ends up being a kind of a sea of parking if you have too many, and then there are also additional stormwater issues that arise if you have more asphalt covered land. So I think we would be happy with 1.75. I think that'd be more than enough parking for this development. Right, and the traffic survey. Oh, sorry, I was trying to remember that one. For the traffic survey, that would probably occur right around the time where we're trying to, once we know the project is awarded, for one, so we'll commit additional funding to it. And then after that, when we're trying to go through the building permit process, normally that's a request from the municipalities that we work in. They want to understand how the traffic impact is going to be before they grant approval. So those typically occur after application award, but before building permit. So that would.
So before the final site plan.
Right. Yes.
Hi, Susan Alberter. Is this type of building, the L shape, the only way to accommodate 71 units, as opposed to townhomes or something like that?
Right. So first, I can speak a little bit. I anticipate it'll be a question too. The reason for the 71 is that OFA, they kind of have an ideal number of units that they'd like to see in an application. It's just based on the number of units that they think is efficient to construct. And that number to them is about 70, 71 to be exact. And the way they kind of dictate that is that the amount of credits that we can receive, so federal funding that we can apply for in the project, they cap it on a per unit basis. So if we can get up to the 71, we can utilize the full source of federal funding that is available to us. So that is why we are looking for the 71. And then to answer your question about the building layout, if we need to be below 3 stories, and then we also want to have elevators, the L shape is going to be the most uniform for this amount of parking too.
Well, I was thinking, like, absent the L shape, is there some other
Right.
way to fit those number of apartments on a lot of that size, but make it look, I don't know, less like it's in the middle of a big city or something?
Right, I understand. I do wish I had a better answer, but the truthful answer is no. If we were to do townhomes, it would be just too much of a footprint per unit. So with a townhome, you're obviously only going to have like either 1 to 2 stacked on top of each other. Here we're able to get 3 units stacked on top of each other, and just on the available floor area, you're going to need to be in a elevator building like this. Other formats of buildings that are common to us is like a 3-story walk-up, but obviously those would not allow for elevators, and I know that was one of the directions we received initially from the village, who were concerned about the accessibility of the units.
Hi, my name's Karen Gardner. I'm not trying to put a jinx on you or anything, but you say that you're going to own this, your company's going to own this building and run it. What happens if you go out of business? What does that look like? Is there some contingency for that?
Well, first and foremost, the compliance that we sign on to when we do a tax credit application and get awarded is the federal regulation is for 15 years. We have to at least maintain an affordability commitment. So that would mean the projects remain affordable for at least 15 years. On top of that, each state you work on will have their own additional requirement. In Michigan, it's 45. In Pennsylvania, it's 40. In Ohio, it's an additional 15 years. So at minimum, regardless of what happens to Woda Cooper Companies, this project will need to maintain affordability for 30 years. So if something were to happen to Woda Cooper Companies, if somebody were to buy it after that, they could make it a non-affordable property. But like I said, we operate over 16,000 units, over 330 communities. This is what we do. This is what we've been doing for the last 35 years. And we continue to operate at a high efficient level. We're one of the most, we are one of the largest builders in Ohio for this type of housing. And we plan to remain that way for as long as we can.
How do you define affordability? Like, would it always be a percentage of?
Good question. So if you look at your little handout sheet here, on the front is the area median income breakdown, and then you also have your net monthly rents. So the way that the industry defines affordability is a percentage of the area median income. So if Yellow Springs area median income was 50 grand, we would be committing to 19 units at or below 30% of AMI. So what that ends up really meaning is that the nets you can see, or the net rents you see at the bottom, if you divide that by 0.33, and then, all right, so I was gonna get confusing. I'm gonna try to not make it confusing. So for the area median income, the statutory requirement is you're not allowed to spend more than that percent or 30% of your income on housing. So 30% of somebody's income who operates in the 50% AMI, they would not spend more than 30% of their income for that house. Was that confusing still? Yeah. Okay. It would be, I think it would be a little more than Yellow Springs. I think it'd probably be Greene County.
Hello, my name is Susan Abendroth, and I've been a longtime resident. I'm curious as to how you will handle the runoff, the water runoff from that property. It looks like it's been turned into a lot of impermeable, and downstream from that area can be problematic. So how will you handle that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that was one thing I was kind of leading into with the amount of parking that would be required by code, is that with this amount, you do have some stormwater runoff, and the way that's mitigated is through a variety of things. You can do underground retention. If you have space for like a pond, like a bioswale, it can like run off there. Obviously, we do not. So the main way that would be mitigated for this development would be a municipal system, which I believe is going to be on Enon Road here. So we would drain it into manholes here and then into Enon Road. By code, you need to manage your own stormwater. So I can guarantee by code we're not going to be relying on gravity or the powers that be to manage, to not let the stormwater runoff proceed south or north or outside of the property limits.
So do I understand you'll run it down through the manholes into the village's stormwater drainage system?
Yes,
right,
ma'am.
Right from your property into that drainage system?
Yes, ma'am. I believe that's how it would be maintained.
And are we guaranteed that that system has the capacity to handle that much runoff?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll be honest with you. We haven't progressed that far to know that for sure. I do not think there will be a capacity issue. That would be uncommon.
Yeah. Hey, Johnny, you
He's
just
right
got, you might have to.
That will be addressed later in the planning stages. They do have to hold their detention and then release to the capacity that our system will allow.
There you go. That's what I'm saying.
That's based in the building code.
Yep.
I'm Alan Rennie. I'm a local resident. I'm sorry to hear that Home Inc. couldn't be considered to begin with, because I think I'm really suspicious. Springfield is not Yellow Springs. They're not going to address our concerns. I don't care what anybody says. It's not possible. In terms of affordability of permanent, there's no reason that Home Inc. could not be given right of first refusal if it is up for sale. Another thing is 71 fixed non-negotiable. Fewer units would address parking, it would address runoff, it would address There's crowding's not even, so is 71 absolute? I understand you get more of something than the other, but this is about what's good for Yellow Springs, not how much money we can get for a project.
Right. I can address both of those. So for the first one, the unit count, it is not fixed at 71, but I would highly recommend that it is 71 units. We're really trying to maximize resources that aren't your guys's, and what that looks like is maximizing the federal credit and then the state resources. And to do that, and to first do that, it's on a per unit basis. So the more units around that 71 number, the more federal resources we're able to utilize in the project. And secondly, the way the applications get scored is they have their own scoring system, and then the tiebreaker is the amount of units that are in the project. Every year they come down to tiebreakers. Every year the units matter. If you can go more than 71, we'd recommend it. But right now we're recommending the 71 because that is what would maximize the federal resource. And for one other comment I wanted to make on your first question for the long-term affordability and the right of first refusal, I don't think we'd have an issue with the right of first refusal. And to further speak about the long-term intentions beyond the 30-year compliance period is what normally happens, and what we're trying to do in all of our properties is do what's called a resyndication. So after 30 years, the building normally needs some updates to mechanical, to siding, to additional units, or whatever you want to do, and that can happen through a resyndication. So what that means is applying for further tax credits 30 years from now to update the building, which would then add on another 30-year compliance period, or whatever the compliance period is at that time.
Hi, I'm Dirk. Most of you folks know me. First of all, just thank you to Woda Cooper. I've been around affordable housing nearby in Clark County for the last 5 years professionally. And I know that Woda Cooper is a great agency and a great choice, I think, as a developer for this project. I'm also here just to kind of substantiate that I know neighborhood housing partnership very, very well. They are a highly professional, very competent organization, and I think we're lucky to have a registered CHODO this close to Yellow Springs. And respectfully, I disagree that neighborhood housing partnership is not going to understand the needs of affordable housing in Yellow Springs. No, I disagree with that, sir. We are not an island. Springfield is only 8 to 10 miles away. We pride ourselves on being a community that's inclusive of those not only inside of ourselves, but outside of ourselves. From my 5 years of experience working with Greg and also Rachel, it's not like Rachel doesn't know Yellow Springs. Her son's a senior in high school here. She probably didn't tell you that. Graduating with my daughter this year. But they will do an excellent job as CHODO. And the fact of the matter is that Woda Cooper and this project, to be competitive and to get the extra $1 million, needed a CHODO. Is it unfortunate that Yellow Springs Home Inc. is not a CHODO? Yes. Could they have chosen to be a CHODO? Yes, they could have. That's a process that you go through, and you're designated a CHODO. And then lastly, just to explain a little bit on the low moderate income. Every area has low moderate income set by HUD, okay? And it's not something that you argue with. Yellow Springs is part of the Dayton Metropolitan Statistical Area. Clark County is part of the Springfield Metropolitan Statistical Area. You can look it up on HUD. Tomorrow I'll send Johnny and Meg the latest LMI chart. If you don't have it, make it publicly available. You'll see on that chart that it's also dependent upon household size. So you have an area median income that's listed on the left hand of the chart, and then where your household falls according to the number of family members is over on the right hand side. And you might fall in the very low income category of 30%. You might fall in the low income category, right, or of 50%. And then at the upper end is 80%. But it's not the same amount for every household. It's an amount that's designated by HUD on this chart according to the number of household members and the formula they use. Now, I can tell you right now that 80% of area median income in Clark County, and I think it's actually higher in Greene County, for a family of 4, is around $65,000 a year. Now think about that. I mean, $65,000 a year is not nothing. These are hardworking folks, you know, family of 4, earning $65,000 a year in Clark County would qualify as 80% under the low moderate income formula. So I'll provide that as a point of information, you know, to the village, and then everybody can look at it and try to understand, but it's definitely set by HUD. And you can see the breakdown that Woda Cooper is proposing according to the different percentages of people that will qualify.
Thank you for doing a much better job at explaining that than I did. I need to get better at that.
Hello, Rebecca Potter, and I should say I'm the president of the school board, but I'm speaking as an individual tonight. And it is exciting to see the stage that we're at, and thank you for coming tonight and presenting this and answering questions candidly. I appreciate that. So you might be aware it was a lot of debate in the village to get us to this point. And speaking from my perspective, we did really reach a win-win-win for soccer, which has $100,000 in the community foundation right now, 3.6 acres of land donated, over $500,000 to convert that land into soccer fields, new students if families are in them. And this is why I'm going to ask a few questions. In that discussion, we really emphasized the need for affordable family housing, which we understood cannot be guaranteed, but was encouraged through 2 and especially 3-bedroom units. So for only 20% of all units to be 3-bedroom apartments really falls short of the mark. And I'd like to hear you address that, see how aggressively we can move that number up, at least to 33% of the total number of units. I understand that only 10 units of 10 one-bedroom units would keep us competitive, so perhaps there's a way to reduce that down to 10 and increase the number of 3-bedroom units significantly. The second thing is that the community is still raising the question about that guarantee of affordable housing. You've heard it tonight. And so it was good to hear that there could be a first right of refusal either for the village or for Home Inc., some local entity dedicated to affordable housing. But what role then does the Chodo play in this? What's their management role? Is there a possibility? Home Inc. is a very well-respected organization that's brought millions into this community and developed a lot of units using a community land trust model. So what is the possibility of, rather than an either-or, kind of thinking of a both-and including both the Chodo and the local partner? And I believe that was in your RFP. And that gets me then to the third question, and that's really about the design. And I was glad to hear that the reason for this particular design is because of hearing that elevators would be useful, but I think we can recognize in basic urban planning, I teach in the field of sustainability, that these communities should really have smaller individual housing units, not the long interior hallways. It's very hard to develop community in these kinds of buildings, not a very large parking lot in the center. So I'd encourage you to say work with Meg and Johnny and others to think of the design you had in your RFP of separate buildings, maybe a mix of an elevator building and walk-up around a green space in the center, and what is standard now is put the parking in the periphery, right? creating the boundaries that you're talking about between the ESC and rec soccer or soccer in that field, which could, if partnered with the village, provide some parking that rec soccer parents have been asking for. So those are, I think, pretty simple changes. Increase the number of 3-bedroom units, partner with Home Inc., or at least try to establish clearly how this will be a guaranteed for affordability. This community notes the community land trust model. I'm sure you're a big innovative company. You can adapt to that, and also adapt some pretty basic principles of modern urban design for buildings like this. It's great to see the park, the community room, the picnic tables. I can see that this be a very vibrant place to live in the future, so I thank you for that.
Okay, thank you for that. And I have those written down. We'll be sure to address them, and I hear your comments.
In terms of sustainability and groundwater management, I would encourage you to consider permeable surface parking, and also consider fewer parking spaces. I know you're regulated by the village, the zoning village, but you can also go to BZA and request fewer parking, and I would encourage you to do that.
Okay, I heard a reduction in parking would allow for more flexibility in the layout here, which I think we're hearing that the structure that we're currently proposing, maybe the 2-building approach, or at least rethinking it, is popular. So we can look at that and what the effect on the parking would be, but a reduction in parking would help that.
Hi, Carmen Brown, Village of Yellow Springs councilperson. We talked a little bit about sustainability. We talked a little bit about LEED standard. We talked a little bit about, using pervious or permeable pavement and those options. I want you to talk about how many projects that WODA has that are not just silver, but gold and platinum, and do you have any representation with you here? Because what WODA is doing is, it's incredibly innovative, and it falls in line with what the kind of building that we want to see in this community. And I think that maybe talking about your background and tooting your own horn a little bit might be a thing that we can celebrate.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't know if you meant your background specific to.
Your background.
Right. Yeah. My training is as an architect. I graduated with an undergraduate in architecture degree where sustainability was a focus, and then I also have a LEED certification or accreditation. Sorry. But for your question about the communities that we have that are exploring a variety of green certifications, the most common are LEED and Enterprise Green communities. Almost every state we work in has the same certifications. We are very good at building green certified buildings because it's solely what we do is we work in states that and industries that mandate it. And off the top of my head, I'm not super familiar with the certifications and the products. I know we have one in Columbus that is LEED Platinum. And I wish I had more information to spout off the top of my head, but I know we do exceed LEED Silver, Enterprise Green Communities Plus.
And maybe you could list either now or later some of the features that are included in that.
Right, that would have been a good thing to come prepared with.
All right. What other, you have a question? No?
I have a comment, but I want to, what's the closest units we could go look at? Columbus the closest, or is there something in Springfield, Fairborn, Beaver Creek?
Yeah, we have There is one in Springfield. I think it was completed in 2012, 2013, and I believe it's called Hayden Village, or Hayden Crossing. And then we have several in Columbus. I think our Columbus count is 25 now, around there. But there are several within 50 miles of you guys.
So I was going to say, they're on the
Right.
website, but we're going to compile an answer to the questions tonight and put it on our website, and we can include that on those as part of the response. Yeah.
Right. And if you're preferential to Dayton, I know we have one there too.
Yeah, we can include that on our response that we provide after this meeting.
Hey, my name's April Wolford. I'm a board member of HomeEek, but tonight I'm here as a community member. And I wanted to follow up on the permanent affordability question as well as the guaranteed, the land trust. So what is the mechanism that would be achieved through? Like how do you declare that it would be permanently affordable? Is that something that goes in the application? Or is there a contract with the village that states those requirements? And then about the possibility of putting it into the land trust too, because that's, I think, a very important concern for the community that that's an investment that we keep.
Right. Do you guys have multifamily properties in the, do you guys have LIHTC multifamily properties in the community land trust?
They're not LIHTC, but they are,
Okay.
they are community properties.
So in our experience, the community land trust model, we work with one similar in Columbus, and it's usually for single family, because those are properties that change ownership regularly over the course of the affordability period. You probably have 5 or 6 changes of ownership, which makes sense to then have a community land trust model. For us, the specific requirement is then the application itself. The reservation of credits requires a 30-year compliance period, and then beyond that, it is just Woda Cooper's commitment to maintain all of our properties as affordable housing, because that is solely what we do.
And so you're saying that you would never sell this property, and that's part of what you're committing to?
What we like to do is to resyndicate it, and when it needs updated in the 30, 40-year horizon, we'd like to put further investment into the property and add on to the compliance 30-year requirement, as well as maintain ownership.
Right, but you would like that, but there's no guarantee for us that you would not sell it. It's just your commitment to that, right? So that's part of the,
Right. I understand.
the
That
interest
is,
in the land
it is our
trust.
commitment.
Okay. All right.
So Relita, then Matthew.
Hi, I just wanted to say I was not advocating cutting the number of parking spaces because, as was previously stated, especially if the parking lot flips, we do have soccer, that parking by ESC is used for rec soccer. And the other thing is just the congestion on East Enon. Again, I'm not a traffic expert, but I would not personally like to see cars parked nearly permanently on both sides of East Enon going down the street towards the high school. I just think that's unsightly, and I think we can avoid doing that. So I just wanted to say there may be people who are saying they want less parking spaces. I would not say that's a unanimous recommendation. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I hear you, and I see some nods in the crowd as well, so that's duly noted.
All right. Well, that's funny, because I was going to say maybe on East Enon we could put in angled parking so we could put more cars on the street. Because there's going to be a need for parking there. We know there's already a big need for parking there at certain times of the day. But anyway, digress. I have another question. Are you planning to put any type of fencing or anything like that along the building to separate it from either the ESC or from the play fields? Especially if we put the parking on the back, are we going to have, errant balls, frisbees, whatever, possibly affecting residents' vehicles, things like that? Another question I had was, is it possible to do a project like this on multiple sites? And part of what I, kind of see with this project is you don't have a lot of space. It looks like you've got just enough to squeeze everything in there, and that some of the problems would probably be alleviated with little bit more room. There's just not much room on that site. Because I, like several other people, do think that if we had a design that was a little more villagey, not necessarily, so one note with a large parking lot, that would meet historically what kind of we've had in the village in the past. But that's what I got. Thanks.
Gotcha. So one of your questions for the fence, I did talk to ESC earlier today, and they brought up the same point about the fence, at least on the south side. We would consider one. I hear your opinion there. Another thing that we can also do is, instead of a fence, like a landscape buffer, which might have some of the same effect without the look of the fence. So focusing that foliage on the south side, or like you said, it is tight, but if we can reconfigure the building to allow more foliage on the backside to prevent that buffer from the soccer field. Yeah, that's a good point. And then your second comment on the possibility of doing it on separate sites. If Johnny has another site, we'd consider it for sure. That's what's called a scattered. Well, she's getting the microphone. That's what's called a scattered site development, and it is allowed in the LIHTC program.
Follow up.
So I guess, what if we had another site, but it only scored 9 points on location instead of 10 points on location? Does that become a blended score then of 9.5? Do they go with the higher? How's that work?
It would be a blended score, and I think you would be in the point category below what would be probably awarded. It's a 9 and a 10.
This site's 10, everywhere else in the village is 9.
Right, so when you're putting that in one application, how would they score it? Is that what you're...
10, or it would be 9, or it would be 9.5. What would you get scored on a location if you had this location and another location that scored 9?
Right, and I thought it was a blend between the two. Oh, okay. I thought you said it was inaccurate. I believe it's a blend. I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but that's something we can provide in the comments that gets circulated back.
Chris Bongiorno again, and this time I'm going to wear my Yellow Springs Home Inc. board member hat. I'm the board president for Home Inc., and I wanted to, again, thank you, as everyone else has here, for your presentation tonight and for answering questions. I did want to offer a quick clarification on the invitation to team on the RFP. It was a last-minute invitation, and we were already partnered with another developer, and didn't feel at that late hour, literally the night before, was the time to join another team. As far as becoming a CHOTO, it is something that certainly is possible for Home Inc. to do, but is not an easy process and requires a significant commitment of capital assets that we were not comfortable as a small nonprofit putting on the table, or potentially not even able to qualify with the assets we had at our disposal. So we recognize the need to bring a CHOTO into the development team to be competitive. We're glad you found a partner in NHP. I'm looking forward to getting to know you guys. Home Inc. is sincerely interested in finding a way to partner at any stage in the development process and into the future. So I appreciate the sentiment from community members who have raised that question and that opportunity. I think you both know that Home Inc. exists and that we have a lot of resources and a good standing in the community. So I hope we can continue to work towards a partnership opportunity going forward. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd like to echo that. If I implied that Home Inc. did not want to work with us for any specific reason, I did not mean to. I just meant you guys declined to work with us when we did offer. I understand it was a tight timeline. It was just the results of the timeline of the RFP around Thanksgiving for one. But I'd like to echo what you said too. We would be open to further conversation with you guys. I recognize that the last 2 months have not been ideal. But if this project gets awarded, we'd be happy to continue those conversations. It's just at this point in time, we weren't able to find a way to do that. But like I said, hopefully we have good news in May, June, and we can reopen the door then.
Alan Rennie again, and I assume light pollution is going to be taken care of.
Yes.
Because I hope so. That's a lot of lights.
Yeah. So we would meet the requirements of the local code. And normally the way that's done to prevent light pollution is that the street lights primarily, or the ones that are in the parking lot, you need to ensure they're there, one, for safety, because you don't want a dark parking lot, but they'd be down pointed to prevent light pollution from going up.
Mitzi Miller, I just want to thank you for coming and sharing your input and answering questions for our community members. We've been in a community where Home Inc. has had their control and has been certainly our affordable housing entity in here in Yellow Springs, and the village has certainly provided them financially with support, tap-in fees, and also it's nice to see other opportunities in the village and the possibility of other organizations and nonprofits also being a part of our community. Thank you.
And thank you for having us. We're happy to be here, and we're excited to be a part of the project.
Has everyone had a chance to ask one question at least? Okay, I think we're going to be wrapping it up soon. So, all right, Brian wants to. You still want to go next? Okay.
Yeah, I'm ready to go next. So first of all, I want to say thank you for being here. Another one of our council members, Brian Hausch, and with the rest of the public, this is council's first opportunity to engage with Woda and our Chodo. And so I do, since we have representatives from the Chodo here, one of the things I wanted to highlight is I'd like to hear something from you guys. But there were three other things I wanted to highlight. One of those being that in the RFP, there was a discussion of having a second community meeting prior to the application going in. I understand that the timeline is tight, but the way it was described was based on what you heard tonight, coming back with what you're thinking about for the final application. I think that second meeting still makes sense, so I would love for that to happen. A second thing is, I was a little bit surprised to hear that the East Enon sidewalk piece is not like fully being thought about, because that is one of the solutions that I know the Yellow Springs schools and the village were thinking about as an extension of our Yellow Springs Dayton multimodal path. So I'd like for that to really, be contemplated in the mix. I mean, that's another challenge that I think we can solve with this project. And let me make sure I've got my fourth thing right. One of the RFPs mentioned a community survey around amenities. And there were a lot of different ideas, and we haven't talked about this tonight, that were brought up from different proposals. We're really good at a community in responding to those, and I think there's time to do that. So those are kind of 4 observations from everything I've heard. Couple things I want to address beyond that. I really appreciate that Woda Cooper has come forward to solve one challenge related to the replacement recreational soccer fields. And, that's really exciting. That also, I know initially that wasn't something that you guys were, apt to do, but I appreciate you coming forward on that. And it's definitely also helped our community foundation and the village thinking about like how community sports are important. And that kind of ties into, I guess, 2 other challenges which other folks have highlighted that I think will really be a game changer and make this the win-win-win we want. One of those is the permanent affordability, which you've heard several times tonight. Let's just, lock that down. And so if that's Woda, if that's our community land trust, and as far as, working with Home Inc., I think that would be great. The second thing is there are a lot of concerns about having a local partner. And so I guess this is where I'll pull my back of the envelope out again. I always like to have everything in my mind, but what I understand is there are quite a few things that our local community land trust, Yellow Springs Home Inc. can provide to this project, including helping to navigate our zoning, which is not easy, and in general, like helping relay like what our citizens are thinking about. Secondly is potentially supporting management of the project as you guys move forward. I know you have different partners, but again, I want you to think about that. The permanent affordability piece, I already mentioned. An advocate for what our residents want. And again, this is Yellow Springs, and I think you've heard over and over again that this is something that folks really care about. And the last thing I learned about is that typically there's a local board, and there maybe is a different way to express that, but having someone in the mix who is able to really identify those issues, I think would be really great. So if we could address those two challenges, I think our community is going to be super happy. And I think we're already pretty pleased that we're moving forward, but I want you to consider those items. Thanks.
Yeah, I hear you. Thanks for all those. I think I got them all down. I can address a few of them right now if you would like. So the second community meeting, in our RFP, we did have a second one lined up, and the reason that we are anticipating moving it to after the application has come out is because the process, we weren't able to start until only a few weeks ago. When we first got involved in the project, there was the issue with the site control with the school board or the school district that we felt was going to be a problem with OFA, and we had to work through that issue, and that only enabled us to start just a few weeks ago. So I know it's a little bit delayed and not what we mentioned in the RFP, but we are working through that process. And I'd like to reiterate that the majority of the things that are brought up here are going to be able to be addressed after the application. It's really the units that OFA is primarily concerned about. In the mobile path, we have absolutely no issue looking into that. That's something that we haven't come across yet. We're still very early in this. As you can see, I only had one drawing to show you. So we'd be happy to look into that. And then on other ways to involve Home Inc., we recognize that they are a valuable member of the community. Our intention is not to shut them out. We would welcome their feedback. We'd welcome their opinions if they would like to share them with us. I do recognize personally too that they are a part of you guys and have been for a long time, and we're not trying to kick them out. It's just we identified the areas in the project that we needed to hit, and we felt with the team at the moment we can get to the application cycle. If we get awarded, we are happy to re-engage with Home Inc.
When we get awarded.
Hey, good evening. My name is Todd Poltz, resident, also a real estate investor and developer, and kind of coincidentally, I'm on the longer side of what you guys do. I find LIHTC projects that have lived out their successful lifetime through the 30 years that have fallen on hard times, and we rehab those and keep them affordable in the communities, mainly in Montgomery County. We've brought thousands and thousands of units back online in Montgomery County. I say that to say that I'm a big fan of Woda Cooper, and you guys are some of the best in the business. They couldn't have selected anybody better. So I have really just feedback for you tonight. One is I am pretty confident that you guys can navigate the very difficult zoning code of Yellow Springs. I think you'll be just fine there. Number two, there is a divide in the community that I see. I don't know anybody in this room. I know one person in this room, so I'm here by myself. So if I don't make it out of the parking lot tonight, it's for this next comment. One, I'm glad that Yellow Springs brought in a for-profit company because they're better at staying under budget or at budget and under timelines than any nonprofit or government agency would ever be. That's just the truth, and that's the facts. But number two, having an outside development group like Woda Cooper, it keeps all the personal feelings out of things. And I encourage Woda Cooper to not bring any local organizations into this project with you. I encourage you to march the path that you guys are marching right now, and to keep the local communities, local organizations out of it. That is the best result for this type of project. If you don't, there will be a distrust along the entire way of at least half the community. There will be half the community that will never trust the process because half the community doesn't trust the organization that you might select. Organizations have a place in the local community, and I think Home Inc. has a wonderful place in this organization. It's just not this project. So thank you for being here, and I'm excited to see what you guys will do because you are absolutely some of the best in the class in the entire country, not just Yellow Springs and not just Ohio.
All right, I'm going to prioritize people who haven't spoken yet, so here we go.
Rachel Doss, resident. Couple things I have questions on. Very familiar with Woda. I used to live in Columbus, worked in commercial real estate and residential real estate on a commercial capacity for a national iBuyer in Columbus. I wrote down three of the communities you mentioned and showed pictures of. I noticed you didn't show any pictures of the actual units. My concerns are like the square footage of the units, the bathroom count in the units, the quality of the units on your website. That's not what any of your units really look like. They're like 2-star units, and I just want to make sure that our village's quality of living isn't somehow degraded or our standards aren't dropped because it's an affordable housing project, right? It's like kind of a gross thing to do, take advantage of people and then lower your standards of like, are we going to use vinyl in here? Are we going to have, I don't know. I want to see more so of what the units are going to look like. What are they actually, like, is there going to be a cap on how many adults can live in a unit? Is there going to be a cap on how many people can be in a 3-bedroom unit? Are we going to have units that are like 16 people in them and it's affordable? And so
I can answer a handful of those. Yeah. There is a cap on the amount of people, adults especially, that can live in the units. You will not have 16 people living in any one of our units. This is one of our communities. This is Dunbury Greene in Columbus, Ohio. You can visit the building. I can't guarantee you'll be able to see a unit, but this is what it looks like. If you saw pictures, maybe they're older developments. I mean, this is what we are building now. And we, as a industry, we have to adhere to very, very strict requirements that are set by state agencies. That's where the green certification requirements come from. That sets a minimum on the square footage for units. For a 1-bedroom, it's about 550 in Ohio. For 2 bedrooms, it's I think around 700, 750. For a 3-bedroom, it's 900. So we can't go below the square footages. So
your actual units, I understand where you can't go below, but what do your actual units look like? The 3-bedroom at 900 is kind of wild. What's the bathroom count on that for a family?
It'd be a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, or a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. We haven't gotten to that stage yet, but I can guarantee you this is what it would look like.
Cindy Seek, Yellow Springs resident. I'm curious how community input factors into the application itself. So if the community is supportive of what you want to do, are there ways that we demonstrate that, and does that factor into your success with the application?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm not going to be able to answer it perfectly. I will say that letters of support will always be included in the application. I think OFA or whatever agency you're working with will want to see that. I will say it's not a requirement to receive letters of support from specific community members, but if that was something that piqued your interest, we absolutely would welcome those, and we'll create a whole tab for them.
I think everyone's got a chance to want to ask a question, so here we go.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself. Thank you.
So I started out as a child. I'll be 65 soon. You're not supposed to say that in public. Well, I don't give my name in public. I'll tell you all about me. I'm going to give you my blood type and everything else. My name is Greg Womacks. I'm Executive Director of Neighborhood Housing Partnership. We focus on affordable housing solutions, very similar to Home Inc. I had coffee recently with Emily. We have spoken and we will speak again. We focus on a lot of educational programs. Actually, Rachel Goff is one of our HUD certified coaches. She's actually my star. She manages our home buyer education program. It's a 6-hour program, very intense. We have a lot of guest speakers come in. A lot of people learn about home buyer education. We also provide credit coaching and budget coaching. Other programs that we have right now are, we have a repair program, emergency repair programs, both for Clark County and for Springfield. The city of Springfield just granted us $400,000 over the next 18 months to provide badly needed repairs, and I know you all know what I'm talking about. I don't know that I can ever get out of my mind when we visited an elderly couple on Selma Road who thought they needed a new roof. And we went in to their house. In their living room, there were trash cans around. You know why? Because every time it rained, they had to catch the water. I'm not going to cry anymore, but I usually cry when I tell this story because it breaks my heart that people live that way. We solve those problems, and it's exciting for me to do that. We were able to put a roof on, solve those problems. They had some other repairs that needed to be done, and I love the emergency repair program that we do. We also do aging in place programs. We turn bathtubs, get bathtubs out of there and put in walk-in showers when it's necessary. I actually love, I think affordable housing is necessary, but I got to tell you, my real focus is home ownership. Sorry. Wouldn't it be great if Woda Cooper gets all these people in and then we can slowly turn them into homeowners somewhere else and open up apartments for others? Wouldn't that be great? We're building 7 houses right now on Clifton Avenue. If you're familiar with Springfield, it's in one of the worst sections of town as far as housing. The city of Springfield's willing to support. Now they're a PJ. I know that you're not. But the city of Springfield's willing to support the difference between the cost of construction and the sales price. It'll cost over $200 to develop these houses. We'll sell them possibly for $160 or $165. But that's what the federal funds are for. And we get to create families that are now homeowners that otherwise would probably never have happened. And as you know, sometimes the lack of wealth has a lot to do with where you live. And we're excited about the fact that this year we're going to create 7 brand new homeowners, and later this year we're going to start another 6 houses to do the exact same thing. That being said, we were recently involved in 2 low-income housing tax credit projects. You may be familiar with them. The Community Gardens was 50 units. It was on the old community hospital site that we purchased the land for. Unfortunately, when the hospital was demolished, we found out that there was a lot of stuff hidden in the ground. It became a very expensive project. Every once in a while, things go wrong, don't they? It can be, but not in Yellow Springs. Nothing will go wrong here. We decided we didn't like the idea of a 2 or 3 story tower, so we decided to build a townhouse look. It took us 3 years to get that approved because it was so expensive. So one of the things you'll gain from a project like this is it is less expensive to build. And that really makes, OFA is going to be interested in providing as many units as possible with their funding. So if you put a really expensive project out there, they're probably going to really look really hard at whether or not they want to fund it. So I would love for Yellow Springs to get this project. If it's too expensive, it just won't happen. Any other questions for me?
Do you want to introduce Rachel?
I'm old. Where is she? Rachel? This is Rachel Goff. I'll let her speak.
Hi, I'm Rachel Goff. I've been working at Neighborhood Housing Partnership for about 8 years now. 4 years as a housing counselor, so I do that one-on-one, the education piece. As Dirk mentioned, my kids have gone to school here. My last one is graduating. Honestly, 10 years ago, I would have loved to have been able to live in the community, but I just couldn't afford it. I'm so excited to see this project happening.
Hold on a second. All right, so are we, oh, you're going to ask him. Okay, so questions for NHP, I think that's a good idea. Okay.
Can you explain what your role in this project will be?
Absolutely. So, really, I mean, we work closely. We're basically co-developers. So we'll work closely with Woda, but we'll be more involved locally, working closely with the council and make sure we're getting information that Woda needs. That's really what our responsibility will be. So on paper, we'll be called the owner. What that actually means is we own 0.0049% of the property. Who really owns it is the investors who invest in the tax credits to get tax breaks on their own taxes. So really the investors are who really owns it, but we will be owners on paper only. That's just the way OFA does it.
Right, and just to clarify that, so the way the light tech industry works is the state agency will allocate tax credits to a project. So we would receive X amount of tax credits, and then the investor will buy those tax credits at a slightly reduced rate to use in their own tax purposes, but then that money comes into the project. So that's how the products are financed. Now, for that, they do get 99.99% of the ownership. That's just how every LIHTC building is owned. But the managing general partners, which would be ourselves, are the ones who control and own the long-term interest.
So once the project is built, what will your role be then?
Well, at that point, you're going to be wanting to have an excellent property manager, and Woda provides that service. So that's really what you want. What we're talking, I'm sorry. Yeah, supportive services is what we're talking about, and possibly partnering with Home Inc. in the future. But outside of that, whoever the CHODO is would be providing supportive services. So supportive services would be educational services that the residents may want, credit coaching, budget coaching, those kinds of things.
So are you saying that your primary role is during the development of the buildings, and that after the buildings have been developed, it's unclear what, if any, role you'll have?
Well, we won't be the property manager. Woda provides that service. So we will continue to be available to assist with education and whatever supportive services are required by the residents. I can tell you that we provided all those services made available to 110 units at Community Gardens. Unfortunately, very rarely can we get anybody to want any services. We're always ready to provide them. So also, we would be doing the same thing in Yellow Springs, make supportive services available, education, credit coaching, help people look at ways that they can better their life financially. Those are the things that we would do.
And then the property management, not just maintaining the property, but vetting the people who are renting, all that will be with Woda, is that correct?
Correct, yeah, that'd be with us. And the tenant services coordinator, I'll let Greg decide or Rachel decide their own staffing, but they would have their own office within the building to host their services in.
So I had another question for NHP. You don't have to get up again if you don't want to, but we can all be kind of casual here now. It's coming to the end of the night. So I'm also kind of building on what Marianne asked. What's your plan then in year 15 with regards to ownership? Because I understand then that's kind of when it changes. So who's going to own the building in year 15? I know we've been approaching that different angles, but you just provided some new information. So I'd like to know. And then I really want to loop back again. You're involved now in the development process. How can we get the number of 3-unit apartments up?
Well, getting the number of 3-unit apartments up is really an architect question, so I'd have to hand the microphone back to Jared. But those are the things that we listen to and try to figure out how to work into the project. These are the experts. These guys have done incredible work, and Yellow Springs is very fortunate to have them. I just I'm excited for Yellow Springs. I really am. This is a great opportunity. Woda does good work. And frankly, when I heard you were involved, I was a little shocked, to be honest, but pleasantly surprised. And you guys should feel good about the fact that Woda's here. So they'll do a good job. As far as the number of units, you know, we kind of ran into an issue when we built 50 units at Community Gardens. They were all 2-bedroom apartments. These were senior apartments. After we built the 50 units, then we had several grandparents come to us and say, "Can we get a 1-bedroom?" I said, "You want a 1-bedroom?" "Yeah. Our grandkids move in and we can't get them out." So, you know, there's a lot of pros and cons to more, but we're talking about family units here, and I'm sure if we can work it out financially, we'll figure out how to get what everybody wants in Yellow Springs.
And on the 15-year ownership question?
Well, I'm retiring in May myself. And let's be honest, there's no organization that we really know for sure, particularly small organizations like Home Inc. Is there a guarantee that they'll be here in 15 years? I mean, we would like to think so. I think Neighborhood Housing Partnership's going to be around in 100 years, but I'm retiring. You know what I'm saying? Because people will move on. So, but we have enough, we have a great staff, actually, a team of 8 people, which I love what we do, and I'm excited about it. And frankly, I hate to walk away, but I have 4 grandkids that I really want to spend more time with, and I'm getting too old to not see them anymore. So it's just that simple. It's personal for me. We believe in affordability. Woda does it for a living. You can look at all their properties. They don't manage them for 15 years and then sell them to somebody to turn them into market rate apartments. That's not what they do.
All right. I think we're coming to a close. Again, if you got other questions, please write them down, put them in the fish bowl up here that have no fish in it, and we will answer them and get them back to you. Thank you all for coming.